Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I'll be your host this week, Ali. You can follow me on Twitter at FFDynastyGrill. With me as always is my amazing co-host, Kev, who you can follow on Twitter at Dynasty_GOAT. Kev, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, the end of the fantasy regular season. So this is where the fun begins. This weekend, put all your eggs in your baskets and go for it and try and win some ships. So it's been a big grind the last 14 weeks for anyone playing any fantasy competition, dynasty or redraft, I guess. But this is where the fun begins. This is where you make your money. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to the next 3 weeks. So we've got some interesting players to recap as well.
We have, and unlike England at the weekend where it's not coming home, we've got Matt returning to the show. He's coming home to the wildcard, and you can get him on Twitter at MattFFDynasty. Matt, how you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks, Ali. It's good to be back. It's we haven't been together for like a month now, I think. So it's good that we're all together. And as Kev said, just in time. It's the exciting part of the fantasy season. So it's just good to be back and excited for the fantasy playoffs time.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. We're all doing fairly well in the various competitions. I've seen your name on Twitter and Scott Fishbowl and various competitions. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how we get on in the playoffs. Of course, we're gonna try and smash it. But yeah, certainly where we make our money in the next few weeks, it's gonna be really interesting. And something that's put a bit of a spanner in the works this week or last night is the Kyler Murray injury. I know certainly affected a couple of my teams. Really bad looking injury, non-contact injury on the very first drive. It's just come out a couple of hours ago that he's torn his ACL. So clearly done for this season. Probably going to have an effect on next season as well. We know Kyler Murray's that rushing quarterback, so you don't want injuries to the knee and to the legs. But unfortunately, that is the case. So we'll have to see how he is going forward and how that affects his dynasty value. So personally for himself, he's now got plenty of time on Call of Duty, so he's probably quite happy rather than spending his time with Old Cliff. But yeah, it's certainly not good for dynasty owners, and certainly we need to talk about that impact. So Kev, will come to you first. Obviously a horrific injury for Kyler, one of the top sort of 5 or 6 quarterbacks in dynasty. Just tell us where you are on Kyler after that injury.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive blow for Kyler Murray. It's a massive blow for dynasty owners, really. Not thinking about the player himself, but just worrying about our teams. I think if you've got him on a contender, you've got to make a move. You'd like to think if you are contending, you've got that third QB anyway that's going to be solid enough for you. But I'd say if they're not a high-end performing QB3 for your team, then in my eyes, you've got to be pivoting off Murray and trying to get something else. I think if you're trying to limp in and putting a claim in for Colt McCoy or starting, I don't know, like a Brock Purdy or something as QB2, it's not really a contending team. You've not built your teams the right way by not having that QB3 as such. But then I think for rebuilding sides as well, this is a massive opportunity for you to go out and acquire a top 5, top 6 QB at a discount, because it will come with a discount because there is risk involved as to when he will be back at this stage. So I think he should have a strong market this week. I think if you're a contender, you've got to be moving off him unless you're in a crazy situation where maybe you've got like a Deshaun Watson as a QB3. Maybe you've somehow kept him on your bench. Also, well, you've got to keep him on your bench because you won't play him. But yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity with this injury news. So I would expect your leagues to be active.
Yeah, it's a massive one, isn't it? Like you've said, is one of the top quarterbacks in terms of fantasy because of that rushing upside. So now the fact that you're going into the first week of the playoffs without such a key part, it's going to be tough to find a way of getting those points that you're going to get from Kyler Murray unless you do go out and make a trade like Kev said and use Kyler Murray in a trade. I know I tweeted about it today. I've got him in a 1 QB league. My other QBs are Jameis Winston and Matthew Stafford. So I'm deep in trouble at the moment. I'm looking to try and move Kyler Murray, but I mean, you've got to go for those teams that aren't contending, that are rebuilding, and sometimes these teams don't have those elite quarterbacks on the team already. So it's just a real tough situation at the moment. I know I'm looking at guys like even Ryan Tannehill, anybody, just anyone that's got a pulse really, if they can get into my lineup and give me some kind of hope going into the playoffs. But it's just awful timing really. A lot of leagues as well might have trade deadlines that could have already passed or coming up to maybe today could be the final day. So yeah, it's just an absolute terrible timing in terms of fantasy. And like I've touched upon it, there's risk attached to it as well with looking long term. And might not be ready for the start of next year. So we could be looking at maybe middle of next year, even towards the back end of next year, until we start seeing him getting that rushing upside. And that's why we love Kyler Murray, because of his rushing ability. So it's just a real tough one with Kyler. I do agree, if you aren't contending, if you're in a rebuild and you don't think you're contending next year, it's an ideal time to grab him, because there's going to be people like me that have got him on contending teams and are panicking big time. So yeah, definitely a good time to try and get him. But I just hope that he makes full recovery as quick as possible, to be honest.
Yeah, I've certainly had him ranked high. I've got him in plenty of Dynasty leagues, so he's going to be looking someone that I'm going to be actively shipping, because I am in them playoff spots. Hopefully your leagues haven't got them trade deadlines. I know some of them do as soon as the playoffs start. I can totally get that, but a lot of leagues won't have trade deadlines, so you need to be aggressive, especially, as you say, if you're not a contender. I think now is the cheapest time to acquire Kyler Murray, who's got a great future. He's still really young. The offense hasn't been great, but he's got some great weapons there to come back to next season. So when he does come back, I've got no concerns other than that rushing floor for Kyler Murray. And just shows in Dynasty, no matter how much research and you can do you just need that little bit of luck. So if you've got Kyler Murray, and a lot of people will have him as a quarterback one because he is a top 5 or 6 quarterback, it is devastating for your chances in Dynasty leagues and into the fantasy playoffs. So yeah, it is really tough, but I think you certainly have to be aggressive, whether you trade for him or you trade him away and try and pick up someone. But as you boys have both mentioned, it's not easy, because you like to think the guys who are not in the playoffs haven't got the best quarterbacks. So, and even if they've got young ones, they might not be willing to give up those guys to help you out. So yeah, it is really tough, but something that we had to bring up. But with that, we'll move on to the main part of today's show. We're going to be reviewing week 14 of the NFL season. So we've only got 4 weeks left of the regular season, or 3 weeks left. Highlighting players that stood out to us and discuss a couple of trades to establish their dynasty value. So Kev, we'll start with you. A guy that we don't talk much about, and we're actually going for a tight end this week, which did surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, Matt's back, isn't he? So we have to talk about his favourite position. Thought I'd get it in early. Plus, this guy's a former Giants player as well. So I'm sure there's a bit of love there from Matt. But we'll see how he gets on with him. Talking about Evan Engram, he was the first guy that came to mind as to someone that stood out this week. What an amazing week. I saw him in Titan Premier Leagues was hitting nearly 50 points this week, or maybe above, depending on your scoring format. I had him on the bench in a few leagues, if I'm honest. And I think if you've built your teams right and you are contending, he should have been on your bench this week, because he was tight end 10, 11, 12, something on the season, which, yeah, is a tight end one. But I think if you've got any aspirations of challenging or being in the playoffs, you need one of those top 5 or 6 guys to really stand out. So when he was on my bench initially, I thought, bloody hell, I could have done with playing him in a league. And luckily I did win that game, but I'm seeing that score on my bench, I was fuming. But I think it is the right process that he was on your bench. So if you're in the same situation as me, don't feel too bad. I think with Engram, he has flashed on occasion. He's had a couple of big games this season. A lot of the time he's been a bust as well. And we're not talking outside top 10, we're talking outside top 20, 30, like scoring 1 point a week. So it's one of those where he's probably been better in best ball, Dynasty best ball this season than playing him anyway. I think in your tight end leagues where you've got one tight end spot, he shouldn't have been hitting your lineup that much. So it's just a flash of what it could be. And we don't know what he's going to look like moving into the future. He's 28 years old. He's got 1 year left with Jacksonville. They're trading for Calvin Ridley. What will happen? Will he re-sign in Jacksonville? Will he go somewhere else? I hope he would stay in Jacksonville, because Doug Peterson's got a record with producing solid tight ends. He is tight end 4 on the season. Before this week, it was tight end 11. So you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. But we know the talent say was cracking early on in his career. He's got a great opportunity in an ascending offense. The risk is that he's got that contract that's expiring. Where will he be? Can you trust him long term? Probably not, because he's not going to be a top 6 tight end in Dynasty. So, in my view, he's not someone I'm crazy about because of where he lands in sort of consensus rankings. But he had a cracking week. If it was in your lineups, he probably shouldn't have been there, but well done anyway. And it obviously, I think it's the way I've been talking. You should understand that I think he's someone, if you can move off him, then it's a good time to maybe reset and go for an underperforming player, or maybe a rookie, someone like maybe Trey McBride. Maybe people get worried that Murray's not going to come back full throttle early next season, and that'd be someone I'd be thinking about to move to off Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, we had to start with Ingram, didn't we? Because he was the highest scoring player in the entire week in all positions. And I mean, usually that's a big achievement if we talk about running backs or wide receivers. But the fact it's the tight end that's done it is, yeah, it's something you don't see too often. But as Kev mentioned, I'm a Giants fan, so I know Evan Ingram all too well. And to be honest, it's not in the greatest of lights. Obviously, he had that great rookie season. Everything looked to be brilliant with Evan Ingram. Looked like the next generational tight end. And like Kev touched upon, he's been a bit of a bust, to be honest, for the remainder of his career. And this is just the flashes that I've seen time and time again with the Giants. He has these games where he pops up. He is one of the most athletic tight ends, so you do come to expect it with someone like him. If you do get the ball in his hands, then he can do great things, but the issue is him holding onto the ball. We've seen it time and time again. The drops constantly. When he went to the Jags, he started off dropping the ball. I thought, yeah, they've got the New York Giant tight end that they went and got. So the fact that they put up this big game ball, it was a bit of a surprise. It can happen with Evan Ingram, but I'm like Kev, I'm definitely not falling back in love with him. I've seen it, like I said, I've seen it all before, and I know how this plays out. You put him in your lineup now next week, you see this huge number that he's put this week. Crucial game, you're in the fantasy playoffs, you put Evan Ingram in thinking, yes, I've got this stud tight end 4 on the year. I can almost guarantee he's going to get you single-digit points this week. And that'll be lucky, to be honest, if you can get 8 or 9 points out of him, because he is just so boom or bust. And then long-term, like Kev touched upon, the fact that they've got Calvin Ridley coming in, Christian Kirk's done great. I'm surprised that Travis Etienne's not being used as much in the receiving game. I feel like that's got to change maybe moving forward into next year. So I do worry about him long-term. And yeah, I'm taking full advantage. If anybody's looking to get him now for this one big week, I'm more than happy to move off him.
Yeah, he's someone that's so frustrating to play in your lineups, and in DFS especially. You always see him at a fairly decent price, and I've had him numerous times where I've played him on the hope that it's going to be the week that he pops off, and he never does. It's such a disappointment. These are his finishes the last few weeks: tight end 38, tight end 27, tight end 51. He was a tight end 4 last week, and then the tight end 1 this week. Actually, the biggest tight end performance of the season, beating any performance that Kelsey put together. So it's such an outlier. But yeah, he has had plenty of targets last week. He had 7 targets last week and 15 this week. So maybe something just to keep an eye on going forward. But yeah, the boys are right. I think if you have any chance to sell him, I think I would do it right now, and I'd pivot to someone like a Bellinger or someone, a K. Dotton, or someone this young that's not always had the greatest performances, that's got plenty of upside as well. And yeah, just looking at the Giants, Matt, how much they could do with a tight end or someone else, another receiving option right now.
Anyone with a pulse again, we take anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, so Evan Ingram, yeah, is someone that you need to try and pivot off, because he's only going to disappoint you in the playoffs. I don't think he's got another performance like this in him. So yeah, let's establish his trade value right now. So, Kev, Evan Ingram, or I can offer you the injured Zaka straight up right now.
I mean, the way I've spoke should sort of tell you where I'm probably going to be going on these, but I just think Zach Ertz, even though there's question marks over, he's on IR, so if you need someone now, I mean, Ingram should still be on your bench, but if you need someone now, you'll take Ingram in that instance. But just thinking of Dynasty as a whole, I would prefer Ertz because he's someone that he's a sort of in that tight end 5 to 8 range, I reckon, when he's healthy. His value is not going to be that because of his age, but he is someone that potentially could win a ship with him in your lineup. Whereas I think winning a ship with Engram in your lineup, it'd have to be a juggernaut or very, very lucky.
Yeah, for me it's tough just because I'm excited about neither of them, to be honest. I've just mentioned why I don't like Evan Engram, and then Zach Ertz coming off a tough injury, getting up there in age as well. There's obviously concerns there, but yeah, if I'm just looking straight up in terms of talent and what they can do for me next year, I'm leaning Zach Ertz coming back. And yeah, I've got to go Zach Ertz. I can't go back to Evan Engram. As I say, I've been burnt far too many times with him. I've got him on numerous fantasy teams from my Giants days. So yeah, let me get off him, and I'll have Zach Ertz, please.
Yeah, I think Zach Ertz was the tight end 2 or 3 before his injury. I think he was really solid every single week, giving you quite a solid floor. So I'll take that side. Trade scenario 2 is Evan Engram or a 24-second, Kev.
If this were a 23-second, then I'd be smashing it. I think 24-second, I'm probably just going to lean Evan Engram, just because I have to wait over a year to use that asset, and I think there'll be another window potentially to move in, whether it be very late on this season or early next season. So I'll even if it means in 9 months doing the same trade for 24-second, I'd feel more comfortable doing it then than now.
I'm going to take a 24-second. I don't even care that it's a year out, to be honest. Evan Engram, you can get him 10 a penny, these kind of tight ends that, I mean, everyone thinks now that he's a great tight end because he's a tight end 4. But I mean, Taysom Hill, what's he? I think he's tight end 5 or 6. He had one big game because he threw a couple of touchdowns and ran a couple of touchdowns in. I mean, there's just no consistency with Evan Engram. So I'd rather take the pick, and I'll grab a guy off waivers at tight end that can probably do what Evan Engram can do most weeks. So yeah, give me the pick.
All right, let's go for trade scenario 3. Evan Engram and a 23 mid-first or Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I like the Mark Andrews side on this one. I just feel that any contending team really should have a top tight end. Top 3 ideally, but top 5 or 6 would be fine. So yeah, I think if you try and get Mark Andrews for a mid first and a throw in, if you can get that deal done, then yeah, it's a smash.
Yeah, easy for me, Mark Andrews. I was going to say that 23. You're basically just paying a 23 first for Mark Andrews. Evan Ingram's he's just nothing in this trade for me. So yeah, if you can get Mark Andrews for a mid first, I think that's solid value. A guy that you can rely on. I know he's having a tough time at the moment, and obviously Lamar being out's not helping things either. But we know that Mark Andrews is one of the elite tight ends. So if I'm just having to pay a mid first to go up and get that elite tight end, yeah, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I actually paid a late first. Well, it's not a late first anymore. I thought it was going to be a late first and a late second for Mark Andrews this year. And I was looking like I was going to make the playoffs, won the championship last year. And as soon as I traded for him, that is when he started playing pretty poorly and not giving me many points.
So it's your fault.
And I've missed the playoffs. So, yeah, not looking great. But Mark Andrews is still, 25 years old, 26. So he's got a long future ahead of him as top 2 or 3 Dynasty tight end. So we'll move on to Matt's pick now, and a guy who's on a bit of a roll at the minute and is pretty interesting for Dynasty now. Yeah,
definitely on a roll. The guy I'm going to talk about is Jared Goff. Like we said, the Detroit Lions won 5 of the last 6 games now, and I think a large part of that is because of Jared Goff and this offense, currently sitting at 6-7. But yeah, as I say, it's the offense that are winning these games for Detroit. You look at the defense; they're actually giving up the second most points per game, around 27 points per game. So the offense, it has to perform really just to keep the Detroit Lions in the games. And as I say, Jared Goff's been a huge part of that. Currently, the quarterback 12 in terms of fantasy. The last 3 weeks is the QB 7, averaging 22 fantasy points per game, 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I mean, it's just a whole new Jared Goff, to be honest, and it's a great situation. We know, obviously, coming over from the LA Rams, giving up Matthew Stafford. It's one of those rare trades where I think both teams have got what they wanted out of this trade. Obviously, the Lions they've now got a solid quarterback, but also getting the picks, and then the Rams going and getting that Super Bowl. So it's one of those situations where both teams are going to be really happy. And I think the interesting thing I touched upon there, Jared Goff being really solid this year. This past week, the rumors have come out that the Detroit Lions looks like they actually think that Jared Goff's going to be the franchise quarterback that they can now have and keep as the starting quarterback for the remaining seasons that he's there with the Lions. So I think that's really interesting, especially when you look at the fact that they've currently got pick 4 and pick 15. So usually you'd think that they're in that prime position where they can go out and get any quarterback they want pretty much in this 2023 class. So is it just smoke and mirrors? Are they just saying this to play a little bit of question games when it comes to the NFL draft and try and catch people off guard with what they're going to do? Maybe, but I think that's what makes it really interesting now in terms of Dynasty, because you can look at both sides of this situation. You can either agree with what the Lions are saying, they are going to hold on to Jared Goff, and in which case you might be able to get Jared Goff quite cheap in Dynasty, because there are going to be people that are concerned with the fact that the Lions have got these two pretty early picks in the draft, and maybe it is all just smoke and mirrors and do go out and get a quarterback. So definitely a really interesting time for Jared Goff in Dynasty. Currently the quarterback 20 on keep trade cut, so still a pretty fair value around that QB2 range. And as I say, he's doing just that. Quarterback 12 is a low in QB1, high in QB2. So the fact that you can get him at that QB20 range feels solid value. So yeah, in terms of me, I'm probably on the side of thinking that, yeah, do you know what? I do think that the Lions are going to stick with Jared Goff for at least another year. I've talked about the fact that the defense is not looking too sharp at the minute. You feel like they've got to go out and use them early picks to maybe address that side of the ball. We know quarterback tends to be one of the last pieces really in the puzzle when it comes to teams that are rebuilding and turning around the franchise. So yeah, I wouldn't be too shocked, to be honest, if Jared Goff is the starting quarterback next year and moving forward. So I do think that he's potentially a great target now to get in fantasy, have him as that rock solid QB2. They come in handy, to be honest, having those guys that you can just rely on, guaranteed that around 20 points per game. It's something that's quite underrated, to be honest, in fantasy. So yeah, I think it's somebody really interesting, and as I say, somebody I would personally be looking to go out and get.
Yeah, I think if you've got Jared Goff as your quarterback too right now, I think you're in a fantastic position if you're in the playoffs. Just thinking of the weapons that he's got, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think he's a top 5 wide receiver now on the season. Obviously, Jameson Williams come back, scored his first touchdown last year on that. It was
well done forgetting that in, Ali. Well done forgetting that in.
That was just for Kev. Completely broken play, but you love to see it. I think he's going to have a massive role going forward. Big fan of Jameson Williams. John Joe Swift, you love seeing John Joe Swift come back, and he's playing really well again now. Obviously got Jamal Williams, who scored all them touchdowns. So I really think Jared Goff, as you mentioned, Matt, is someone that you can target right now, and maybe someone who, like an Aaron Rodgers or someone to pivot off of. You may even get a little bit on top of it for Goff, and I think he's someone who's got plenty of upside, especially on this offense if he is there next season and going forward, because I really want them to play it smart. I want Goff not to try and get as much money as he can. I think if he was to lower his expectation on money, I think that is a match made in heaven with the Lions. There's a really good buzz about the Lions. We love Dan Campbell, the coach. I think they really love Jared Goff as well. And I mean, why not? He's playing really well. And he's someone that I think I've underrated in the past, because when he took the Rams to the Super Bowl, I thought Jared Goff was probably the problem. He was in a system where it was really quarterback friendly, and really any other quarterback could have won them a Super Bowl that day. But fair play to him. He's picked himself up, and he's really looked like a top 15 quarterback right now, and he's playing like one as well. So quarterback 20 on keep trade cut, I think I would try and take advantage. And if there's any doubt about him staying in the Lions, whether people think they're going to go for a rookie quarterback, I would make that move and try and trade for Goff right now.
Yeah, system QB that took it into Super Bowl. I thought we were mentioning Jimmy G then for a sec, but I think Jared Goff is a little bit like Jimmy G, a better version, where it is all about his situation. The fact that he did it at the Rams in a great situation. He's got a fantastic situation with the Lions, with the line and the weapons he's got. You'd have been even happier if they kept Hawkinson, but they've got ammo there to shore up wherever they want on the roster. Really, they've done a really good job from a real life point of view. Goff was one of my flag plants for this season, so I'm victory lapping that one for sure. What's going to happen with the draft picks is the question, because franchises can say whatever they want, what they're going to do, but until we get past the draft, we can't be 100% sure. my gut instinct is that he will be the QB next season because the Lions, they're a scrubby franchise, no offense. They don't make the playoffs. This is a team heading in the right direction. To pull the plug now on him, it feels stupid to do that and sort of lose any momentum they've got. So I think Goff is someone that's really interesting. I think QB2, I prefer him as a QB3 if I'm being greedy, because I think you want to have stud QBs where you can. But if he's a QB2, you're going to be in a fine spot. Imagine if he's a QB3 and you've just lost Kyler. You're in a great spot. You can feel confident that you don't have to make a move there. So let's try and gauge his trade value. The first trade we've got is Goff, a mid-23 first and a 24 first, or Justin Herbert.
I think I'm going to pay up and go and get that elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. While it is quite a lot to pay up, I just think you see it time again, don't you? When you're in your Superflex leagues and you're sometimes struggling with these QB2s. As I said, they do come in handy, but when you've just got that elite option that you know you can plug and play every week, it's just such a relief when you've got those kind of guys. So I think even though it is paying up a fair amount just to go and get that elite guy, I'm happy to do it and get Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I love Justin Herbert. I think his price is probably 3 firsts in Superflex, so it is 2 firsts, and Jared Goff is probably worth a late first right now. So yeah, I'll go Herbert side and get my guy.
I thought a good trade. Next one we've got Jared Goff or Derek Carr.
Interesting one. 2 pretty similar quarterbacks, to be honest, in terms of what they do for you in fantasy. Question marks, I guess, with Derek Carr. I think is he under contract next year, but they've got an out on him if they want a move on from Carr. So I just think with that little bit of uncertainty, although you could say it's uncertainty for both of them, to be honest, but I'm just going to go Jared Goff then, purely because I feel like he's playing the better football at the moment. The offense seems to be humming a lot more than what the Raiders offense does, even though they do have the stud, obviously, in Devontae Adams. But yeah, I think I'm just going to favour Goff, but they're pretty similar to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think had Carr not absolutely bottled it on Thursday night against the Rams, I mean, what was he doing not targeting Devontae Adams in the second half? Absolutely ridiculous. Had Carr won that game, the Raiders are looking like a playoff team. I think his situation looks completely different right now. But if they're going to miss the playoffs and they've got a fairly cheap out on him the end of this year, there's more uncertainty there, I think. So I'll pick Goff, but it's pretty close.
Right, then last one. Let's see if we can get you moving off Goff. We've got Jared Goff or Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, God. It's funny because when I was looking at keep trade cuts, seeing Aaron Rodgers below Jared Goff, I mean, if you'd have told me that at the start of the year, I'd have never believed you. But it is a tough one, but I'm just going to side with Aaron Rodgers because I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. So you've got to feel like he can turn it around. There's obviously concerns getting up there in age. He's still got the passion for it, but I think he has, to be honest. And I feel like this year is just an outlier year, and I feel like next year we could all be looking back on this year and thinking, why did we doubt him? So I am going to go with Aaron Rodgers in the hopes that things turn around for next year.
I knew you were going to ask this one, Matt. Okay. I think I'll still stick with Aaron Rodgers, and it is a tough one. He's certainly looking a lot more upside now that Christian Watson has turned into Devontae Adams 2.0. But I'll take Rodgers. I don't believe that he's going to hang up his cleats at the end of the season. I think he'll come back with a bang next year. But yeah, again, they're really close in value right now. Who do you pick, Kev?
On all of them? Just for me, I'd probably take Goff over Rodgers right now. Just, I don't know. I've just got a bad feeling about Rodgers that he could hang it up. Whereas I think Goff, like, even if something weird happens, he's not on the Lions, he's going to have a job. Thinking 2-3 years. Whereas Rodgers, it's a little bit 50-50. But a good trade offer. Good trade offer.
Great trade offer.
Yeah, really well done, Kev.
Right, we'll move on to my selection. I'm going to go for another New York Giant, someone that has been struggling the last few weeks. Saquon Barkley, the running back, the superstar running back. The Giants have now got a 4-game winless streak. Sorry to remind you, Matt, but the offense right now and Barkley's just not playing very well at all. The RB19 the last 4 games, so it's not terrible. RB26 in points per game. So it's really not where Saquon was at the start of the season, where he was tearing it up. He's just averaging 2.8 yards per carry over that span. So, I mean, it's the way when you watch the Giants play, it's not surprising. The teams are absolutely loading the box. They're focusing everything on Saquon because, I mean, really, other than Slayton, they've not got too many great weapons there for Daniel Jones to throw to. It's either him trying to rush or Saquon trying to rush. And it's pretty easy to defend against, and they're not scoring the points that they were the start of the season, where he was averaging 4.7 yards per carry. He looked absolutely explosive. So is he running out of steam right now? Well, who knows? You wouldn't be surprised with the workload he's had. He's the third most rushing attempts in the NFL. And I looked today, he's broken just seven broken tackles all season. None in the last 4 games. And if you compare that to some other running backs, so Derrick Henry, 27 broken tackles, Jacobs, 28, Chubb, 23, and Damian Pierce, 27 as well. So he's well below there. He's getting tackled almost immediately. And then you just got to look longer term for Saquon Barkley. There was talks of a contract extension in their week 9 bye. They didn't come to fruition. They've halted them for now, saying they don't want to. They want to leave that and focus on it in the off season. Don't want to deter from what they're doing this season. And I know there's plenty of Giants fans that are concerned. They want Barkley to sign long term. Their offense clearly centers around Barkley, but he does want to be the highest paid running back in the league. He wants Christian McCaffrey money. If I'm the Giants, it might be a bit of a hot take, but I don't want to pay him that much. I'm not a fan of paying running backs. We've seen in the past where they've paid running backs. Just look at maybe like a Zeke contract right now. He's not performing to the level where he's getting paid. I just think that position is replaceable, especially if you look in the NFL draft this offseason or the free agent class. I think there's cheaper options out there that won't be nowhere near as good as Saquon, but will get you through. But maybe they end up tagging him. Who knows? There's certainly a lot of unknown right now. Looking on Keep Trade Cut is the RB4. He was the RB2 a couple of weeks ago, but I mean the running back landscape has been just completely up and down. Jonathan Taylor fell out of the top 5, but he's back up to number 1 now. It's a bit crazy. But just in terms of me for Dynasty, I'm at that point where if he has a decent week, and I'll remind people that he has produced this season, I am happy to sell him right now and just pivot to a younger guy, maybe like an ETN that's not playing very well right now. And maybe you have to wait for a contract extension to be announced, or him to stay another year in New York for his value to rise even more. And then at that point, I'll be looking to sell.
Yeah, I paid up for Barkley in a league we're all in, and the team is in the playoffs. It's got a bye, but I'm not feeling too confident about that move now. Looking at my future picks and thinking, like, if I was trying to sell Barkley, who the hell would be buying him off me? Because because of what he is as a player, a running back that's near age apex, near where his value is going to go down, it reduces your market. There's maybe 2 or 3 teams in your league that would want him or could afford him. So a little bit nervous times, but we had a similar conversation a few weeks back with McCaffrey that this elite running back, he'd not been performing. I think it's slightly different because Barkley's clearly got an injury. He's had a tough schedule as well last 3 or 4 weeks. It does ease up a little bit, but it's one of them where I think you can go for it and be a little bit risky, getting him at a value. We know his ceiling is there. If he hits, he's got running back 1 potential every week. And just hope that the injury he's got isn't going to hamper him too much in the fantasy playoffs. I think if you get to next season, there will be another point to pivot off him. So you will lose value next season. Obviously, he's getting older, but he's an interesting guy. I'd be tempted to move towards him if I was contending and looking to get a little bit of a risk on my roster.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me with Saquon Barkley. We all know that I absolutely love the guy, being the Giants fan that I am, and my bias towards him. I do think when he's healthy, he's the best running back in the league. I'll keep saying it, even though at this moment in time it doesn't feel like it's true. But yeah, I do think when he's healthy, he is one of the best in the league. In fantasy, like Kev says, you're sweating now. You've paid up. Kev paid me quite nicely to get Saquon Barkley. At the time, it was the right move to make. Kev pushing for the title, but now that you're getting into the playoffs and obviously the struggles, it's a tough one, and just in terms of real life as well with Saquon, and obviously me being the Giants fan that I am, I kind of hope we don't sign him, to be honest. I think that the fact that we even took him in the first place was a bad move in terms of real life football. We should never have took him as early as we did, even though he is one of the best running backs. Like you said, though, you can get these running backs, even though they're not at the level of Saquon Barkley. You can get somebody that can produce for you. And I just feel like now where the Giants are at the moment, I still feel like this O-line's still nowhere near where it needs to be. You mentioned earlier about the missed tackles forced and the broken tackles. It's because he's got no time at all. This O-line's just not offering up the protection that he needs. I mean, it's like going out and buying a Ferrari, but it coming with no wheels on it. I mean, it's just absolutely pointless, like spending that kind of money on something that's just not able to do what it can do. So, it feels crazy to me to think about as signing him on a big contract. It's going to be a shame to see him walk away, but I just feel like it's the right thing to do. We can't afford to be giving up the money to keep him, and that then leads to an interesting situation in Dynasty, seeing where he does move on to and who pays him, what they pay him. It's going to be really interesting to see how this offseason shakes out. So with that, we'll try and get a price check on where he's currently in Dynasty. So we'll start with Saquon Barkley, or the man of the moment currently, Tony Pollard, and a mid-23 second.
Oh, I think you've absolutely nailed this trade, because I've been thinking about either side, and it feels right both sides, but then it also doesn't feel right at the same time. I think I'll stick with Saquon on this occasion because, as you mentioned, I do think he's the best running back in the NFL. You put him behind a good offensive line next season, and whether it be the Giants and they work on it, or whether it be another team, I still think he's got a good 2 or 3 years where he could produce elite figures. The same with Pollard. Pollard's been absolutely great this year, but the situation with Zeke, with the Cowboys, again, that's a bit of an uncertainty as well. But I'll just plump with Saquon, but it is really close.
Yeah, Saquon for me. I think with Pollard, there's a lot of risk. I think it was Rich Cullen on the 5-Yard Dynasty show. He said that he's got the widest range of outcomes in Dynasty, and I think that's fair. We don't know what's going to happen with free agency. And then you've got a mid-second. I think if it was a first, yeah, I would take that side, but mid-second, I'll plump with Saquon. Thank you.
Fair enough. The second one, I feel like I know what I'm going to do with this one. I wanted to change it up mid-show, but I'm struggling to think. So I'm just gonna say what I went with: Saquon Barkley or Austin Ekeler. Which side you go for?
I'll take Austin Ekeler. I think there's not a lot of slowing down from Ekeler, even though he's 27 years old. He is so central to that offense, and it's a great offense as well. He's got so many scoring opportunities. I think he just stays there for the long term. So I'll take Ekeler.
Yeah, I'll take Ekeler as well. I think he's got a better floor, better ceiling. He is a little bit older, but I think the way he's used, he's not running through the tackles, between the tackles a lot, is he? So, and he has like 15 target games like Evan Engram, so all good for him. Yeah,
that were a bit of layup that for you two there, but I think they are neck and neck in keep trade cuts value. So interesting one there if people do a buy to those trade values. And the final one, this one may be a little bit more interesting. Saquon Barkley in a mid-23 second or Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, I think it's about the right value, to be honest. I'll just lean the Jonathan Taylor side just because of both. I see them in pretty similar situations currently, both struggling on offenses that aren't firing. But I'll just take Jonathan Taylor because he is 3 years younger than Barkley, and I think his range of outcomes next year is high. We could see the great Jonathan Taylor return if they sort out their offensive line.
Yeah, I think very similar sort of profiles in the sense that on the day they're amazing. I think if you can pay a mid-second to reset and get, like Alex said, 3 years, I'd do that. Take the JT side.
Yeah, love it. Well, it's only fair that we spoke about the Giants running back, so we have to now talk about the Eagles running back. And over to you, Homer.
Oh, me. Yeah, obviously I had to get a Philly player in. I am becoming more biased as the Eagles do better and better. So Miles Sanders is the guy that stood out for me. I nearly mentioned him a couple of weeks back. I think he played Monday night against the Packers and he ran over them, which was expected. But again, this week against the Giants, he had a fantastic game. It's just a really strange as an Eagles fan. So when he came into the league, he caught 50 passes as a rookie. He looked fantastic as a potential sort of 3-down guy under Peterson. And then We've got Sirianni in now for the Eagles, and last year, like a committee, I thought this season it would be a committee as well with Gainwell, but that's not really come to fruition. They're using Sanders as a 15 to 20 touch guy. Not many receptions at all. It's a lot of rushing, but he's done great. I think he's got double-digit touchdowns. He's got 1,000 yards first time for an Eagles running back for years. I see a lot of similarities between the Eagles and how the Bills sort of use their personnel backfield-wise, the sense that they're not using free running backs as much as the Bills split it, but they're using the big back as the QB. So the Bills go for these smaller guys and have Josh Allen as the power back. And it seems to what they're doing with Philly as well. They're using Sanders, sometimes Boston Scott, sometimes Gainwell, and using Hurts as the power back. So as much as I would love a thumper in there for the Eagles, it seems like Miles Sanders is gonna get most of the work on the ground. And like I said, he's not been a touchdown guy apart from this season. It probably helps that the offense is a lot better now. I do have concerns though still, because he's essentially a 2-down back on an offense which has got a rushing QB. So if he doesn't hit a touchdown, it's going to be really tricky for him to be viable. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with his contract. Will he stay in Philly? Will he move in free agency? We know it's a crazy deep running back class as a rookie as well. So despite him being an Eagles player, I think he's someone that I'd quite like to pivot off, because we've seen all the running back injuries. I want someone at the top as an anchor, or I'm not too fussed. And I don't think Sanders has ever got that sort of top 8 potential over a longer term, over a longer sample size. So if I can move off him and maybe get something less risky with a better contract, or even pivot down a little bit running back, then I'll be happy to do that despite him being Eagles player. Go Birds.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never been super high on Miles Sanders. Even when he came in as a rookie, I wasn't super high. I believe, was he back up to Saquon Barkley at Penn State? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Just spoke about Barkley and then going on to Miles Sanders. But yeah, wasn't super high on him when he came in as a rookie. Obviously going to the Eagles didn't help his cause either for me to fall in love with him. But I was coming around to him, like Kev mentioned, when he was used in the passing game. I was starting to think, yeah, that this offense being used as that 3-down back could be really interesting for Sanders. But then, like Kev touched upon this year, the fact that he's barely being used in the receiving games really put me on red alert again with Miles Sanders, because, like Kev said now, because he's not really used in the receiving game, his floor just seems just so terrible at the moment. I mean, just looking back over last 5 weeks, running back 39, running back 37, then running back 2, then running back 23, and running back 3. It's just so up and down at the minute, because he doesn't have that safe flow with the receiving work. It's a little bit like a poor man's Derrick Henry, I guess. The fact that he's barely seeing the receptions, but he just isn't anywhere near the runner that what Derrick Henry is. So you just know that any given week he could really let you down in fantasy. And I do always worry with running backs like that don't have that receiving upside. So it's going to be interesting again. Another running back going into the offseason that could be moving teams, could find himself in a new role. Maybe they do look to use him in the receiving game, because I think he's a capable receiving back. It's just it doesn't seem to be used in that way at the moment. Obviously, having a quarterback like Jalen Hurts that can run with the ball as well makes it again another interesting dynamic with Miles Sanders, and again another situation where you could find yourself struggling with him if Jalen Hurts is running those touchdowns on red zone. You'll be throwing the remote at the TV and wishing it was your running back. So yeah, it's just in a real strange situation, to be honest, at the moment, not having that receiving work. So again, another running back this offseason could find himself in a better situation, and maybe I start to come around. Maybe I want to come over to the Giants. We'll take him. I mean, we don't mind having Saquon's backup from college. So yeah, it could be a really interesting offseason with Miles Sanders.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, and certainly having his best season to date. This system, I think, just suits him so well. I was a bit worried with Jalen Hurts being that rushing quarterback that does score rushing touchdowns. But it seems to be working perfectly. And just the fact that every single week they seem to put up 30 plus points, there's just plenty of scoring opportunities for Sanders. And Jalen Hurts not always going to put himself in danger to score the touchdown. And as you mentioned, Sanders, the double-digit touchdowns this season. And he's having them boom games as well. He's had 3 really good weeks this season that have helped win you a week, where he's only had 3 over the course of his whole career. So this year's really suiting him down to the ground. And I just hope he don't price himself out of a deal in Philly, because it works really well where he is right now. I do fear whether he goes to a team that aren't scoring very many points, like a Rams right now, or someone like that, where he's just going to struggle and he's not going to have the scoring opportunities. And if he doesn't get that receiving work, although we know he can do it, then as you both mentioned, the ceiling is going to be so low for Sanders. So yeah, let's gauge his dynasty value. So trade scenario 1, Kev, is Miles Sanders or Aaron Jones?
I'll have Aaron Jones, please. Playing this season, next season, I think Aaron Jones, you know what you're getting with him. You know that he's going to give you a safe amount of points, maybe not the ceiling of Miles Sanders potentially based on the offenses they're in, but yeah, just give me that certainty rather than not really knowing what you're going to get.
Yeah, to be honest, Kev just took words out of my mouth. I think Aaron Jones for pretty much the reasons Kev gave. I think he's got that little bit more receiving upside, and just feel like he's a little bit more of a stable asset at the moment than what Miles Sanders is.
Yeah, I really thought that AJ Dillon would play a significant role in the Packers' offense this year, but he's just basically been the backup. So yeah, I'll take Aaron Jones. So second one is Miles Sanders or an early 23-second.
Early second for me, just on the hope of seeing what falls out of the first.
Again, hate to agree with Kev, but yeah, give me that early second. We know the strength of this class. We know there's some strong running backs as well that could potentially fall to early second. So let me get that reset on a rookie running back that can hopefully hit.
Right, let's see how we get on with the third one. So Miles Sanders or a mid-23 first or Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I'm going to be a homer on this one. Sanders and the pick, please. I think mid-first. Is it going to be Etienne? Unlikely, but I think you've got a lot more options with that pick to go in various directions. You don't have to necessarily go running back. It might be QB or probably one of the best wide receivers in that class as well.
Yeah, again, hate to sound like a bit of a parrot copying Kev, but I just think that the fact that first gives you that little bit more of maneuverability, whereas you're just penciling yourself into a running back. Well, I think Travis Etienne's a stud running back going through a bit of a dip at the moment, so potentially able to get him a bit low at the moment. But yeah, I just think with the versatility you've got with that pick and what it could potentially be, it kind of excites me. So yeah, give me that Sanders and that mid first.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. Etienne absolutely crushing it a few weeks ago, but now he's just pretty much disappeared. So yeah, I'll take that side grudgingly. We'll move on to Matt's pick and a guy that absolutely smashed it this week, although was maybe lucky to stay on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Smashed it this week. It's Jerry Jeudy, but like touched upon, it's not very often we get to talk about him because it has been such a frustrating season with Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, the injuries that have been on and off throughout the year, the offensive struggles that the Broncos are currently going through. But it did all seem to just come together quite nicely this week. Although, like you said, Ali, could have easily fallen apart. We got a little bit hot collared, didn't he? When I think I thought he had a pass interference, I think, and yeah, nudged into the referee. Could have easily got evicted from the game. So thankfully, he didn't manage to get 9 targets, 8 receptions, 73 yards, and 3 touchdowns as well. Absolutely putting up great numbers. He's easily his best performance of the year. I do think it was a big beneficiary of the fact that obviously Courtland Sutton didn't play, and as well that the Broncos went down so heavy so early that it just meant that they had to throw the ball. So it was been more of a shock if he didn't put up a big game, given the fact that he was pretty much the only wide receiver out there and the fact that they were chasing the game. But yeah, so a massive jump in his fantasy production, went from wide receiver 48 all the way up to wide receiver 35 on the back of that performance. I do still think there's concerns as we look forward with somebody like Jerry Jeudy. We know that the Broncos over the last few years have been a team built on a strong defense and a solid run game. Again, a beneficiary of this year, the fact that Williams obviously got hurt. Now they're relying on Murray, Marlon Mack, Mike Boone, these kind of running backs. They can't really lean on that game script that they've relied on for the last few years of just pounding the ball, running the ball so well. So I do think long term when Williams comes back, I feel like they get a little bit more stability back in that running game, and that just give me some concerns with Jerry Jeudy as well. And just thinking about Russell Wilson, he's struggling this year. Well, I do think that he's going to bounce back. I feel like it's too bad to be true, to be honest, with what Russell Wilson's doing this year. But if we are starting to see a little bit of a decline, you've got to think that they lean on this run game. It's going to be solid having somebody like Javonte Williams running the ball. So I just think that he's never going to have that super high ceiling that we hoped for from somebody like Jerry Judy, as I say. Cortland Sutton coming back as well, another solid wide receiver. I just can't see the ceiling when it comes to Jerry Judy. So do have my concerns long term, but yeah, solid week from him this year. Can't knock him.
Yeah, it's probably more name than game, isn't it, at this stage? The fact that he came out and he had all this hype about him for playing at Alabama, etc., and it's not really lived up to expectations. That we really rarely speak about him actually on this show, so he doesn't have the boom weeks like you mentioned. It was looking early on in the season like Sutton was the main man for us, but there is a bit of a glimmer that it's flipped a little bit. I think the offense might not be as run heavy next season. Especially if that coach goes, I think he's done a terrible job, to be honest, despite the injuries. And Javonte's never been a bell cow as such. Michael Carter, obviously sharing a backfield with an elite guy like him, and then Melvin Gordon. So I'm not too sure what this offense will look like or who will be the coach. But yeah, I think Judy's vastly underperformed his name. I think if you can move off him at a good price, I would do it and reset and roll again as such. But I do think this offense will get better next season. I mentioned on last week's show that Russell Wilson's son, I'm going after that, would look to buy his value at keep trade cut. There is better days ahead. There's just a lot of risk not knowing what the offense will look like next season. Dulcich will grow as well. Javonte, if it's a change of offense, will he get pass game work? Will they bring in someone to take rush work away from him, which would be better? Who knows? We're going to try and piece together where Judy's valued in Dynasty now. So first trade is Judy and a mid-23 second or Treylon Burks.
I'm going to go with Treylon Burks. I think I was really high on him coming in this year. Although giving up that mid-23 second, I think that's fair value, to be honest, to get out from Judy. We talk about ceilings. I feel like Treylon Burks has that elite ceiling. We've seen flashes of it. Obviously, he's dealing with injuries lately and the concussion, but I do think that there's a real ceiling with Treylon Burks. So yeah, I'm happy to pay that and go and get Treylon Burks.
Yeah, I'll take Burks upside. Just I think he's got far more upside than what Judy's got.
Good stuff. Next one, Jerry Judy or Jerry Judy Jr., Rashad Bateman.
Funny you said that because I think it's pretty similar, to be honest with you, between the two. I think I'd just lean with Bateman. We saw flashes of it this year before the injury. Well, I don't think he's ever going to be a super volume guy. I still think there's potentially a little bit more of a ceiling with Bateman than what there is Judy. So I'll take the chance on that, and potentially being the wide receiver one in Baltimore, I'll take Bateman.
Yeah, I don't think we've not seen the upside of Bateman just yet. I think he can be a top 24 dynasty wide receiver, so I'll lean that side.
Can't believe I said Ravens wide receiver. Tom will be going wild. And then last trade, we've got Judy or Wandale Robinson and a mid-23 second.
Tugging on my Giants bias here, Kev, aren't you, with the Giants wide receiver? And yeah, do you know what? I'll take Wandale and the mid-23 second. I feel like Wandale's got potentially an exciting role with the Giants moving forward. Can be used in a variety of different ways. So hopefully sees that volume and then getting a shot at a solid 23 class. That mid-second pick could be a solid wide receiver there as well. So yeah, I'll take the package side of that one, please.
Yep, agreed. I'll take the pick side. So I did mention the Ravens, picked a Ravens guy there in the trade. I'm going to pick another Ravens player right now in J.K. Dobbins, who returned to the fantasy lineups and turned to the Ravens this week and posted a really good performance, RB10 on the week, and done plenty of his damage early on. I think he was less than 50% of the running back snaps, and he did rumble for 120 yards on the ground and 8 yards per carry, so he looked really good, really fresh as a runner. But 0 targets, so maybe it's a bit of a pause for thought about his ceiling going forward. I think that's always been the thing with Dobbins, as we spoke about with Sanders, is he doesn't get targeted a hell of a lot. We know he can be used as a receiving back. He saw 71 receptions in college for Ohio State. But that's not huge, but it did show enough. And showed us the capability. But then just the Ravens scheme, it just doesn't target the running backs hardly at all. That they're the fifth fewest running back targets on the season, just 54 targets to go round, and 15% target share for the running backs, which there's only 6 teams that are throwing less to. And it's just a bit of a surprise, really, given how thin their wide receiver room is right now. And with Bateman gone for the season, thought DeMarcus Robinson is their top wide receiver, and they're still not targeting the running backs to try and move the ball. So, although it is great to see Dobbins back, you just have to think how high his ceiling is for the rest of the season. And just it is a bit of an unknown for me. It's just his third game over 100 rushing yards in his career. And he's had just 30 total targets in 20 games in his NFL career. So for me, he's always going to be slightly limited on them targets. And then given that he's got one more year on his rookie deal left, it's given him short-term security. So hopefully he can stay healthy for the rest of this year and then come back again next year and be the lead back. Be really interesting to see what they do with Gus Edwards, who's still under contract in 23, although they can cut him for fairly cheap, $1.25 million in the off season. So for me, it's possibly another good running back that I'd be looking to sell off a good performance. Someone pivot to a guy that I think's maybe got a higher ceiling, one of the younger guys. We know J.K. Dobbins is pretty injury prone as well. So yeah, I'll take advantage now.
I just think for me, it's a lot of thoughts, a lot of sentiment that we mentioned around Miles Sanders. The fact that he's a 2-down back, he's going to be touchdown dependent, he's not getting used in the pass game. There's a little bit more injury risk, and he's got a little bit more security with the contract. But even on his breakaway run this week, the way he was running just didn't look right to me, like he was still injured or carrying me. He looked like you were running like John Wayne or something. Like I don't know, it just didn't look right to me. I think he's an interesting guy to go after because of where he is ranked. There's the upside that potentially he could be top 8 running back again, because that's where he was pre-injury. But there is some place where I feel there is a little bit too much hype, as well as a lot of risk involved to be going after him. So it's in certain spots you should be targeting him.
Yeah, it's a tough one with J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, the end that he had to that rookie season got us all super excited. And then obviously the injury, it's now pretty much been 2 years of lost seasons for J.K. Dobbins. We know it can be tough when running backs come from the ACL injury. And obviously that's shown this year with him again struggling to fully recover from the injury. I do think next year when we get the full off season and going into next year, I do think we're going to see J.K. Dobbins back to hopefully near enough 100%, which is obviously exciting given what we saw at the end of that rookie year. But yeah, like I've mentioned, it's funny that we spoke about Miles Sanders. This is pretty much a running back in the same situation, given the fact that the offense, it's an offense that centers around a quarterback that can run the ball. And while we obviously talk about the fact that the lack of the receptions, we do know that these rushing quarterbacks create more lanes for these running backs, because the defense obviously got to defend both the quarterback and the running back. So it is always interesting when you get these running backs on these kind of offenses. Yeah, I've always been a fan of J.K. Dobbins, so it's a tough one for me that he's obviously missed these last couple of years. But I do still believe in the talent. I do think with a full off season and hopefully getting back to 100% health, I think like now you could probably get him at a bit of a discount of where he might be at the start of next year. So personally, I'm still happy to go out and try and get J.K. Dobbins if you can get it for the right price. So we'll try and put a price on where you two guys are in terms of his value right now. So the first trade is J.K. Dobbins or a late 23 first?
I'll take a late 23 first. I think I'm ready to give it up on J.K. Dobbins and go again with this special rookie class.
Yeah, re-roll for me, please.
Fair enough. J.K. Dobbins or Rachaad White?
I'll take my guy Rachaad White. I wouldn't be a Buccaneers fan if I didn't pick White here.
Great surname, Rachaad White.
Yeah, I definitely thought I might go for that one. J.K. Dobbins and a 24 first or Kenneth Walker?
I'll go for any running back called Kenny. So Kenneth Walker, absolutely love him.
Yeah, I think 24 first is too far out, so I'll go for Kenny as well.
Fair dues.
Yeah, love it. So with that brings us to the end of today's show where we've reviewed week 14 of the NFL season. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard. Join us every Tuesday for the podcast and every Wednesday for the stream of the show. So thank you once again. Have a good one, and we'll see you again